Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz, and this is Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over the MLB games scheduled for Friday, September 8th, 2023. Now, if you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. And if you're looking for my best bets, including my $19 rundown best bet, you can find those at the premium picks tab at pickdawgz.com. Alrighty, let's get into it. Here are the games for Friday in Major League Baseball. First up, it's the Arizona Diamondbacks taking on the Chicago Cubs. Zach Gallen and Jameson Taillon are your starters. Zach Gallen has struggled as of late. You look at his last two starts, giving up 11 earned runs in those two games combined. You could say the first one of those two games is an exception because he was on the road where he struggled this season. It was against a very good lineup in the Dodgers, but still gave up 4 home runs in that game. You would expect him to bounce back in his next start at home where he's been so sharp this season at Chase Field, but no, you give up another 5 runs against the Orioles. Another tough lineup there, but still, you're facing a tough lineup in this game against the Cubs, who have been one of the best lineups in baseball against righties in the second half of the season. So I think Gallen continues to struggle on the road where he's got an ERA almost at 5 at 4.81. Taillon's also struggled this season at 5.73 ERA this year. Not in great form himself, giving up 4 earned runs or more in his last 3 games and 4 of his last 5 games. The Diamondbacks bullpen's also been one of the weaker bullpens in baseball in the second half of the season. I'm going to take the over here at Wrigley Field between the Diamondbacks and the Cubs. Next up, we see the Chicago White Sox taking on the Detroit Tigers. Reese Olson and Mike Clevenger are your starters. We saw the same pitching matchup last week at Guaranteed Rate Field in Chicago. It was a 10-0 win for Detroit in that game. It's tough to go against the Tigers in this game. Reese Olson, 7 innings, a shutout ball, only 4 base hits, and no walks allowed. I would have liked to see him earn some more strikeouts, but this is a very aggressive White Sox lineup. It does not walk very often, but also, it doesn't really strike out a ton. As of late, though, their strikeout rate has gone up as a team, though. Their chase rate is the highest in the league. But Mike Clevenger on the other side struggled against Detroit, gave up 12 base hits and 8 earned runs and only 4 innings of work. I can't back him in this game. Give me the Detroit Tigers on the money line. Next up, we see the Seattle Mariners taking on the Tampa Bay Rays. George Kirby for Seattle. Looks like Taj Bradley for Tampa Bay. George Kirby's not in great form. He has struggled on the road. We saw again in his last game against the New York Mets, 4 runs, 3 of those were earned, and a home run against the Mets in a 6-3 Mets win. And the Mariners have now lost 3 of the last 4 starts for George Kirby. That's a little bit concerning, facing a very good Tampa Bay Rays lineup and a very good Tampa Bay Rays team when they're playing at Tropicana Field. Taj Bradley had a nice bounce-back start, or his first start back at the Major League level was a strong outing against Cleveland. The walks were a little bit concerning, but he really didn't have control issues in the minor leagues, so I'm not too worried about that. I think he's the better option right now, honestly, on the mound to start this game. Both of these bullpens are solid. Both of these lineups are solid, but Tampa Bay has been so good at home this season, over 20 games above 500 at home. Give me the Tampa Bay Rays on the money line. Next up, we see the St. Louis Cardinals taking on the Cincinnati Reds. Drew Rom and Andrew Abbott are your starters. There's no doubting that Andrew Abbott is the better starting pitcher in this matchup, but the Cincinnati Reds are dead last in baseball in the last month in team OPS and ISO against lefties, so it's really tough to back him here. I do think Drew Rom is slightly better than his current ERA, which is above 7. And, I think, like I said, Abbott's a really good starting pitching option, but St. Louis does a good job at getting on base via the walk and limiting strikeouts against lefties, so I think that benefits him here. The Cincinnati Reds bullpen in the last month has the 4th highest SIERA, which is a little bit concerning as well, regression-wise going forward. To me, and we saw St. Louis play well in Atlanta. They were a big dog in one of those games against Spencer Strider. They won the game outright. To me, there's value with St. Louis in this game as well. Give me the Cardinals on the money line. Next up, we see the Los Angeles Dodgers taking on the Washington Nationals. No official starter for LA, but we should see Mackenzie Gore going for the Nationals. Going to go with the Dodgers here on the run line. We've seen Mackenzie Gore struggle against teams that hit lefties well, and the Dodgers are one of those teams. Mackenzie Gore's last start was solid against the Blue Jays, but he only had 2 strikeouts in 5 innings of work. In the month of August, he only had 23 Ks and 26 1/3 innings, which is concerning for me. You add the 7 home runs he gave up, it's also a big concern against this powerful Dodgers lineup. I don't think the Nationals bats back him up enough, and I don't love this Nationals bullpen, so give me the Dodgers on the run line on the road. In our next game, we have a great one between the Miami Marlins and the Philadelphia Phillies in the NL East. Yuri Perez and Christopher Sanchez are your starters. I'm going to take the Marlins in this game. This has been a really fun season series so far. It's tied at 5 games apiece, and this one certainly could have playoff implications. But I do think Perez is the better option on the mound. I think the Marlins bullpen's also undervalued right now. When you look at Christopher Sanchez, a lefty, facing a Marlins team that's hit lefties pretty well this season, a lot better against lefties than righties. And Sanchez's last couple of games giving up some sharp contact. We've seen at least 1 home run in 4 of his last 5 starts. In his last game, he only went 4 2/3 innings against the Angels in a 10-8 Phillies loss. He gave up 5 total runs and 7 base hits in that game. Give me the Marlins on the road, which should be a really entertaining ball game. Next up, we see the Milwaukee Brewers taking on the New York Yankees. Colin Ray and Luis Severino are your starters. I know a lot of Yankees fans are saying, why didn't we bring up the prospects earlier in the season when we had a chance to make the postseason? I know, some of the fans are also bringing up that the Yankees have won a lot of games as of late, and now there's an outside chance that they could make it. I mean, never say never, but it's less than 1% right now for the Yankees. But they have to win games like these. And, this is a matchup against Colin Ray, who's not in good form. He's got an ERA above now a 5 on the season now. He's given up at least 2 home runs in each of his last 3 games. A lot of sharp contact, pitching at a hitter-friendly ballpark against the Yankees offense that has been improved since bringing up those prospects. And Luis Severino, the Yankees are 3-0 in his last 3 starts. His last game was not his best, but it was still good enough for the Yankees to grab the W against a very good Houston Astros team. Before that game against Houston, Severino had 2 of his best starts of the season against the Nationals and Tigers, going 13 2/3 combined with 10 strikeouts and no earned runs. Give me the New York Yankees here on the money line. This Brewers offense just hasn't been great against righties. Next up, we see the Kansas City Royals taking on the Toronto Blue Jays. No official starter for KC, but we should see Yusei Kikuchi going for Toronto. Kikuchi not in the best form. His last couple of games, we saw him at Coors Field only go 4 2/3 innings, gave up 6 runs. That's at Coors, but before that, against the Guardians, it's one of the weakest lineups in baseball against lefties. Kikuchi gave up in 6 innings of work 4 runs and a home run in a 10-7 Guardians win. So I'm a little bit worried about that. Facing a Royals team, a young lineup has been decent as of late against lefties, top 10 in isolated power and top 15 in OPS in the last month. A low strikeout rate to go with it. We know this Royals bullpen hasn't been great this season. In the last month, an ERA above 5 with the 6th worst Sierra. I think we see some runs early and often in this game. Give me the over in KC Toronto. In our next game, it's the Baltimore Orioles taking on the Boston Red Sox. Kyle Bradish and Tanner Houck are your starters. It seems like Kyle Bradish has been Mr. Consistent this year for Baltimore. It seems like his ERA has been in the low 3s all season. In his last 5 games, all 5 wins for Baltimore. 2 earned runs or fewer given up, 6 or more innings in 4 of those 5 games, 5 or more strikeouts, no home runs given up in those 5 games. He's faced the Red Sox once this year. He really struggled in that game. 2 1/3 innings, 7 earned runs, but I still think he's a much better option in this ball game. Houck has struggled at Fenway Park with an ERA above 5 at home this season, 5.4. And the Orioles, I think, have the better lineup and bullpen to go with it. So give me Baltimore on the money line on the road. Next up, we see the Pittsburgh Pirates taking on the Atlanta Braves. Mitch Keller and Bryce Elder are your starters. Pittsburgh played a pretty competitive series against the Brewers, a team that's pretty much owned them the last few years. The Pirates won that series at PNC Park, and now Mitch Keller, who we worry about a little bit on the road this season, doesn't have the best numbers on the road, has actually pitched really well his last 2 games away from PNC Park. A game against the Twins, a solid lineup on August 19th, 6 innings, 2 runs, 12 strikeouts. And then his last game against the Cardinals on the road, it was on September 1st, 6 innings of 1-run ball with 8 strikeouts in that game. So 20 strikeouts across his last 12 innings on the road. We know this is a very good Braves lineup. There's no doubting that. But, Atlanta didn't play a great series against St. Louis, another losing team. And Bryce Elder, I do have some, regression concerns in his game as his expected numbers aren't the best. I think there's value at Pittsburgh in this matchup. Give me the Pirates plus the 1.5 runs with a sprinkle on the money line on the road. Next up, we see the Oakland Athletics taking on the Texas Rangers. Paul Blackburn and Jordan Montgomery are your starters. Jordan Montgomery struggled his last game against Minnesota, but that's a very good Twins lineup against lefties in the last month, and it was the second time he faced the Twins in the same week. He faced them back on August 27th, pitched okay in that game, but then struggled in his last game. It's never easy facing the same lineup twice, especially a better lineup in the American League. But now you're going back home, and I think, against one of the weaker lineups in baseball in the A's against lefties in the last month. They're 23rd in OPS and ISO with a steep strikeout rate to go with it. Against lefties, and Paul Blackburn, he hasn't faced the Rangers this season, but he faced them last year. He really struggled against them. 10 1/3 innings of work, 13 base hits, 15 earned runs, 2 home runs, and 6 walks for a 13.06 ERA. He's been, solid this season, but much better at home, where he's got an ERA below 4, on the road an ERA above 4, and 41 2/3 innings. Give me the Texas Rangers here on the run line. Next up, we see the New York Mets taking on the Minnesota Twins. Kodai Senga and Dallas Keuchel are your starters. I think Senga remains the best option in this Mets rotation by far, and even though he's been better at Citi Field than on the road, I think he has a good outing in this game, but I also think his offense backs him up. Dallas Keuchel, an ERA above 5. I'm looking to fade him often right now, as the expected numbers aren't great either, and he's facing a Mets team that we know at the beginning of the season was not great against left-handed pitching, but in the last month, they're actually top 10 in baseball in OPS, top 5 in isolated power, a low strikeout rate, and a decent walk rate against lefties as well. Give me the New York Mets in the first 5 innings on the money line. And our next game is the San Diego Padres taking on the Houston Astros. This one's going to be on Apple TV at 8:10 Eastern. Blake Snell and Hunter Brown are your projected starters. Now, I do think Blake Snell is the better starting pitching option, but he has a really tough matchup here. He's been great in the second half of the season, but the Houston Astros in the last month, #1 in baseball by far in isolated power and team OPS against lefties with a very low strikeout rate at 18.6% and a very high walk rate above 10% as well. Just a really tough matchup for any lefty, even Blake Snell, in my opinion. Hunter Brown, I think, will be good enough for the Astros to win this game, and I also think the Astros have the better bullpen and just better lineup in general when you look at this one. So give me the Houston Astros, who've been playing great baseball. They got swept by the Yankees, but they bounced back and swept the Rangers. Give me the Astros on the money line. Next up, we see the Cleveland Guardians taking on the Los Angeles Angels. Logan Allen and Griffin Canning are your starters. I like the under in the first 5 innings and the Cleveland Guardians in the first 5 innings. I think Logan Allen bounces back from 2 bad starts against the Rays and Blue Jays, 2 of the better teams and better lineups in the AL. Now you're facing an Angels team that in the last month has not done well against lefties. On the other side, Griffin Canning, the reason why I like the under in the first 5 is Canning's in good form. His last 3 starts giving up 2 earned runs or fewer. Now he is a strikeout-dependent starter, which concerns me a bit against the Guardians team, and we know is a great, very low strikeout rate against righties. So that's why I think the Guardians may score a run or 2 against them in the first 5. So give me the under and the Guardians in the first 5 innings of this one. Next up, we see the Colorado Rockies taking on the San Francisco Giants. The final game for Friday's card in Major League Baseball. Ty Blach and Kyle Harrison are your starters in this one. I like the under in this game. We're at a very pitcher-friendly ballpark. You got the Rockies on the road, where we know their offense has struggled this season. You got the San Francisco Giants, who their offense has struggled in general against lefties and righties in the last month and against lefties overall this season. San Francisco improving their numbers a bit, but still 21st in the last 30 days in OPS against lefties. 28.6% strikeout rate does not bode well. Kyle Harrison, I think, has some value on him, as he started with an ERA of 4.7, but he's one of the top pitching prospects for San Francisco. He's got really good strikeout stuff. He just has to watch that control. Last game we saw him struggle with the home run ball, but at Oracle Park here, very pitcher-friendly ballpark. I think we see a strong outing from Harrison. Give me the under in this Rockies-Giants game. And that's it. Those are the games for Friday in baseball. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. And don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comment section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pickdawgz Premium. As always, this is Ron Romanelli. Good luck.